morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome back. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled Podcast. Steve's here. Hi, Steve.
Morning, mate. How you going?
I'm pretty good. Sorry, I said in my last owner stories that I'm using a new microphone. I'm not actually using a new microphone. I've had it for some time, and I just said to you, but I'm just watching my levels because it's very confusing because I have a different readout on my pod track that Spike Thurston uses, and on my GarageBand. It's all very different, so I'm just trying to work out if I'm blowing out. But it sounds okay on your end, right?
Yeah, sounds fun. Sounds good. No special effect comedy.
No, I have the buttons. I can add in our theme music in the middle of the podcast if you want, but I won't. It's on there. Yeah. It's on button A, B, C, or D. I can't remember which one it's on actually. It's on there, but I could do that. You want me to do that? No. All right. Welcome back, everyone. If you haven't been here before, my name's Michael Barth. That's Steve on the other end. We're going to talk all things Porsche again today. And Steve, You're in a rush. What's happening this morning? You're getting your car fixed.
No, I'm not in a huge rush. After this, I'm going back to Auto House. My latest little thing was the seatbelt receptacle on the driver's side. Was messing around and throwing an intermittent airbag warning on my dash. The guys diagnosed it a couple of weeks ago, and I got the call yesterday saying parts in ex-Germany. So that was about 2.5 weeks, I think. And they're happy for me to drop by to fit it. Because I live so far away, it's a bit of a pain in the butt for me, nobody else's fault but mine. So normally when I go for a visit, I get a loan car, but they're happy for me to kind of sit and wait. So
it's nice when you can sit and wait. I don't get a loan car. I'm a bit of a cheapskate. As you know, I catch the train back to the city, but a bit difficult for you. Hey, that's what they told me at Porsche Centre South Sydney. Actually, when I asked for the quote of the roof racks, they said it only takes 2 to 4 weeks from Germany. 2 to 4. Yeah, that's what they said. 2 to 4 weeks.
Wow, that's long, isn't it? Because back in the old days, didn't it used to be sort of like a week?
I don't know. I mean, it's a variable though, right? Because if you're waiting on a part, if it's 2 to 4 weeks, like you said last week, if you're Auto House or you're a specialist or whatever. So it might come in 2 weeks or it might come in 4 weeks. It's a bit hard to book people in. I'm not sure what's happened. Yeah, and I'm not sure what's happened because you know that I'll just let the listeners know that ignition issue that I have.
Yeah, you go. Explain that.
I think that it's from speaking to Chris at Auto House, it seems to be I think you call it the ignition switch or the ignition cylinder. It appears that other people have had the same issue. I think Chris said he had someone who had the same issue. So that's booked in. The part has to be ordered. It has been ordered, and I'm not going in there until, and they're probably busy as well. It's probably not just the part, but I'm not going in there till the 4th of February, I think it is. February 4.
Yep.
So I think it should be okay until then. It's not a cheap, I'm not going to say how much it costs, but it's not a super cheap repair. Yep. If anyone wants to know the cost, they can DM me and I'll give them the cost. I don't want to say it online.
Yep.
But it's not that bad. I mean, like you said, when I told you about it, and I had told Marco about it, I think peace of mind, I think I just need to do it. I mean, it seems the car still starts and it seems to be okay. It just those 2 issues I went through last week with the not turning on and not turning off.
Yeah, which is obviously just a bit, I'd find that kind of disconcerting. Anything that potentially kind of leaves you stranded is not a good mental thing, but particularly for you, like when it's your own car. But just that sort of parts thing too, because like if it's a crucial part, like pretend this was your daily and like the ignition barrel cylinder was really on the fritz, and you were kind of literally relying. This is the point that Grant sort of made to me when it comes to kind of part supply for his business. It's like, yeah, wow, that makes things really difficult. You know, like in the past, like if they needed to, or if anybody needed to get a part X kind of Melbourne, you might be able to get it overnight sort of thing. So then, your car's out of action, not for 1 day, it's out of action for 2 days. But for them to now logistically kind of manage all of this stuff, like if something's kind of crucial, bit of a headache.
It is a headache. I wonder though, Steve, if the issue is the fact that Melbourne, for example, if that's the head office, I don't know who the head office is.
Yes, it is.
That they're not buying as much of the basic parts. You know what I mean? They're not buying as many of basic parts. They're not keeping stock. Because of the improvement in logistics, right, and how quick logistics are now in general, pre-COVID, people won't keep as much stock on on
it doesn't
demand.
make sense to hold inventory on anything.
It doesn't make sense because we can get it within a week. I don't want to don't want to pay it up front. It's hard to work out what parts people are going to need. So you leave it. But then you have any kind of issue like this. We always joke about it, right? Because when you do projects, and I don't know whether you've had to do these, but when we do exhibition projects, the client always wants the risk plan, right? So it always has to be done. Most of the times we do it ourselves. We don't get a risk expert because that's too expensive for a company of our size.
Yep.
And, you always put in, war, terrorism, and pandemic. And we always kind of laugh when you put in pandemic because it's like pandemic, if that's going to ever happen. So it kind of makes sense that all these things are messing up because even though it's a risk that you should account for, most people haven't. Most people haven't.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, most businesses that I know of, like in my field, don't even sort of think about backing up, like your files, like something really basic like that.
I tell you what,
it takes for you to kind of, lose a hard drive to realize just how painful it is. But the worst part of that is the liability to your clients. Like if I lose files and, I don't have a backup of it for my clients, I'm being completely unprofessional. It's not just myself. So,
That's pretty scary though, Steve, isn't it? When you're I remember in Bahrain, I'm with people and I go, so you have a backup of that, right? It's like, oh, don't back up. It's like, what? You don't back up? How can you not back up? Honestly, I'd find that so scary. Like I back up in so many different places, whether it be, Time Machine or NAS and now like separate drives for certain things, you just have to be, you have to be careful. Let me just go through owner stories. I just sent it to you. I just sent you owner stories. Owner stories number 67 this week, which most of the guys would have listened to already. I'm sure most of you guys would have listened to it already. Number 67 is Brennan. Brennan is also a supporter on PorscheCooled on Patreon, so thank you for that, Brennan. Brennan and I had a good chat. He asked me to guess where he lived before we went online, I think it was, and I couldn't guess it. I should have guessed it because it was still reasonably bright and it didn't look like bad weather outside. So he lives in Vegas.
I was going to say, how are you supposed to guess visually?
Well, the light, I guess. But he lives in Vegas. Right, okay. He's originally from Seattle. His dad is, when you listen to the story, Steve, his dad is a car collector. His dad's got about over 20 odd cars. And Brennan sent me this DM, and I'm going to read it because this is the intro, and this is when I get ones like this. And every story is a great story, but some of them have a little bit of a different twist, and this one had a different twist. He says, my father has had an 88 cab since I was little that gave me the Porsche and car bug, which he talks about in the story, right? Throughout the years, he's collected a bunch of cars, including an 89 Prussian Blue 930, which his dad still has, and a current 356 Restoration, which his dad still has. Cool. Last month, my father gave me the 88 cab as a wedding gift.
Wow.
So just to touch on it briefly, Brennan has a 964 Carrera 2. That was his first 911. Reasonably new to him, Steve. His 964 Carrera 2, he wanted that car. He wanted a 6-speed. He wanted it in Grand Prix white, which is what you had, right? Grand Prix white?
Yep.
Grand Prix white. He's a bit of a white BMW guy, as he said. Hi, Brennan. And he chased the car, I guess. He wanted this car. He spoke to the guy. I think he said it was a thread on Renlist. I don't know whether you've seen this. And then he eventually bought the car. The car was owned by a guy on Instagram, which you might have seen, called What the Fook.
I think I've heard of it, but I'm not big on social media, so.
So that was on Instagram. He's on Instagram. That's who Brennan bought it from. It's a 1991 964 Grand Prix white Carrera 2 6-speed, and it has the wheels that I love. It has the Cup 1 wheels, and they are in white, Steve.
Cup 1 wheels, huh? Okay. Yeah,
in white. Very nice. That's very cool. Nice.
Yep.
So there's a really good story behind the 964. I'm not going to give it away here, but listen to that. And then this year, late last year, when Brennan got married, there's this 88 911 that he remembers as a kid, sitting in the car, going out to the garage, seeing the Porsches, seeing all the other cars that his dad has, and then sitting in this car, feeling the steering wheel, the noise and all that. And then just before he got married, his father gifted that car to him for his wedding. And it's a special one, mate. It's a cab, but it's a 911 3.2 88 commemorative edition Cabriolet. I think it's called Diamond Metallic. Brendan said Diamond Metallic. I know you're listening, Brendan, but I just checked online before I came on. It says it's Diamond Blue Metallic, but I'm not sure. So that was the commemorative edition, Steve, that was brought out to celebrate 250,000 911 cars made, believe it or not, 211 cars made on June the 3rd, 1987. And it was brought out in coupe, Targa, and cabriolet. So Brendan has that car. So now he's got the cab, Steve. He's got the cab and he's got the 3.2. He's got the 964. Great combination. Really, really cool story. So I suggest everyone, if you haven't listened to that story already, give it a listen. And you should go and follow Brennan as well. And I should just have his Instagram in front of me, and I don't because I'm not very prepared this morning. But his Instagram is at Brennan, BRENNAN, Murph, MURPH. So go and say hello to Brennan, give him a follow, and tell him you heard his story on Porsche Cooled.
Slight tangent off that.
Yes.
I wonder how many of us think about what's happening with our cars when we're long gone. I know it's a bit of a morbid kind of thing, but it reminds me...
Very morbid, mate. What are you talking about that this time of the day?
Just because these things are sort of become so precious again, here's that word. But there's a really great advertising line for Patek Philippe watches, which is something along the lines of, I'll misquote it, sorry to the copywriter that wrote it, but something along the lines of, you never own a Patek Philippe, you're just a caretaker for the next generation. Yeah, it's a really sweet kind of thought, like you buy the watch and then you sort of think of it as an heirloom that gets passed on. I wonder if it's, I must admit that's the way I think about the GT3. It's like, even though I've got daughters who possibly might wind up being rev heads, but, when they're old enough to drive and stuff like that, they'll remember like their old man constantly tinkering with this idiot car sort of thing. I wonder if they'll have an appreciation for it, or I don't know.
But I think, especially for you with, 2 young children, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's what's good about Brennan's story. Like, he's a kid. He's like growing up with all these cars. He remembers the Porsches. He goes out in the garage, he sees them, Steve. And the one he always remembers is that 88 cab. And I said to him, because he did actually Brendan mentioned that it's his birth year. 88's his birth year. And it's like, do you think your father did that? He did it intentionally. Is it like a watch, like how you bought watches, watches that birth year watches that you'll pass on to your kids. You know what I mean? Like, and he said, no, because I got a brother and sister and they didn't do that for my brother and sister. So it must have been planned. But it's right about the passing on thing. And that Patek ad is a really good ad. It does make you think, and that was...
It's such a nice thought. Yeah. It perfect is. For the brand. Yeah.
It is. It's perfect for the brand. And that ad came out well before when Pateks were, available, when you could actually buy them. Obviously now it's a little bit different. But it's a great way of looking at it because it is something I guess you do kind of think about. You know what I mean? And the value of these cars, do you want to, when you invest in a car, even if you bought it for a lot of money or a little money, it's still going to go up. Do you really want to, when it's a special one, do you really want to part with it? Like you with your GT3, it's special to you for lots of reasons. Yeah. And you don't really want to part with it.
Because now I kind of got married in it and, like there's obviously all these kind of memories and stuff. But I wonder if that does change a little bit given where, internal combustion engines are kind of going. We don't really know if like, in 30 years' time, whether or not like these cars will be kind of vilified or they'll be more revered than they are now, or, like whether my kids will just kind of go, yeah, whatever, like, it's valuable. Let's sell the thing.
Let's just sell it. Yeah. Which happens with houses, which happens with jewelry, which happens with a lot of things when people die. But
well, you've had a few owners' story things where good mates have unfortunately kind of passed and the mate sort of wanted to buy the car because, like, the family left over possibly, I'm guessing, didn't really have an appreciation for it and it was just kind of sat there, which is, to me, is a really kind of nice, again, a nice way of, like, the car kind of moving on and being appreciated. So, I don't know, it's interesting. Morbid, but interesting.
It is, but I do like that part of owner stories. But I also think about the children. Maybe the children weren't interested in the car, like you said. But it's kind of nice that it has gone to a friend. Do you know what I mean? And I think there's one story, and I can't remember this morning. The story where it's like, at that point in time, you can't really buy it, and you wait, and the car's still sitting there, and then you go, okay, I'm going to buy the car. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Which is a nice thing that they just left the car in the garage.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's a good nudge kind of thing. Yeah.
Steve. Let's just go to one review. Let me just read out this one review because I always like to read out the reviews. And I know who this is, and I'm really, really sorry. You sent me a DM, and I've completely forgotten who it is because it just has the Apple username. This one is for real people. 5 stars. Thank you very much. I enjoy this podcast because Michael and Steve are very relatable. It's the kind of Porsche chat that I have with my local Porsche friends, not judgmental or critical of people's choices. Just remember that, Steve. The topics are interesting, and the owner stories remind me of the many ways people fuel their passion for the brand, which is true. You know, that's a good part of owner stories. Thanks, guys. Yep. And that's from Love the Twisties from the US. So thank you very much for leaving the review. And as I say, every week that the Apple reviews and ratings, just a second. It only takes you a second to leave a star review. If you can write a few words, that's even better, and it just pushes us up the podcast charts. Hey, did you see? I know it's on everyone's talked about it, and it's been all over the internet as most things, but we haven't spoken about it. But it's kind of an update, about values, your favorite topic. But top end values, collector, very very rare Porsches, and we're talking about the Carrera GT, Steve, CGT, the CGT as they call it. I had a look on Bring a Trailer at the values because I thought I just want to know what the values were and how many they've sold, because people are saying, Bring a Trailer is such a great spot to sell cars. They only charge the seller minimal commission. What is it, $5,000 US or something for a $2 million car? I think it's very, very minimal fee.
Right.
And they're talking about the other auction houses. Maybe kind of think about, are the other auction houses are they kind of getting a little bit obsolete? Are they not moving with the times? Are they like taxis when Ubers came out? All taxis had to do was, in Australia, just bring out a really good app, and maybe they could have fixed up their act. Is it that sort of thing? Are these sort of online auction places like Doug DeMuro's one, Bring a Trailer, collecting cars, are they the new auction houses, the cheaper way to sell, that they base it on more quantity and sponsorships and not necessarily
I suppose
commissions?
it works at the moment because this, everything has become more valuable and appreciating. So you kind of know at the moment that you've got more of a possibility of kind of making good money just because of the kind of current climate. But I wonder what's going to happen with all of these places when, we're at the other end of the cycle where car values are less predictable.
Yes.
And all of that sort of stuff. It'll probably be a bit more of a litmus test. I've spoken to various...
Is it an easy market?
Yeah, because I've spoken to various car dealers about the topic of auction houses. I think we touched on it once before.
Yeah.
And they obviously were a bit more cynical, but I don't think it was sort of purely a professional thing. Because I tended to agree, is man, it's a big leap of faith to kind of go and buy something on auction, potentially sight unseen, all that sort of stuff.
I guess it's how comfortable you feel. Just going back to Brennan's story, he didn't get a PPI done on the 964. He said he was comfortable buying a car and not sight unseen because, he's had experience with it before with other cars, and his dad does it, I think, as well, right?
Yeah, sure.
And also because he got to know the guy who's selling it, so he trusted the seller, and then he called up what you said a long time ago, he called up the service place and it had all the records, and he spoke to the person that does all the servicing and looks after the car. Yep. So you find out all the details. So I remember you said that ages ago, and I think that's a good way to do it if you're not going to get, it's about trust, isn't it? It's a good way of getting the information. But I think you hit the point, perfectly then. I mean, it is these places like Bring a Trailer, collecting cars. I mean, it's a market at the moment. What happens when that market drops? You know what I mean? Fear happens very quickly. Look at crypto this week. Crypto's gone down like crazy. Everyone's selling. Fear is a scary thing. You know what I mean? If people start to get the inclination or the idea that their car is going to drop by 20, 30%, people are going to start selling, especially people who are, just investors. Don't you think? Anyway, that Carrera GT market really, I thought was really, really interesting because it was only 2020, Steve, 21st of February 2020, where they had their first one. This is the record of sales they have. There's only a few dots, 4 dots. And that was an 04 GT Silver with black interior.
Yep.
We all know the Ascot Brown is nicer in the interior, but it's GT Silver and black. That sold for $576,000 US.
Whoa.
In February 2020. Wow. February 2020. Now, think about if you bought that car. It had 36,000 miles, so it's a little bit heavier.
That's high, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a bit higher, but think about the current level, right? Then on the 14th of September 2021, year and a half later, at 04 GT Silver with Ascot Brown, beautiful interior, Ascot Brown and black, I think they call it, sold for $1.3 million US. 2,700 miles. right?
Okay.
Low.
The first one, do you think the first one's a bit of an anomaly though? Because that's pretty high mileage for a
I think so,
Carrera
because it's
GT.
36.
Yeah.
It'd be good to see. I was thinking when I was writing this down, thinking, I wish that one would come back up for sale. That would just show the market at its true point, right?
Yep.
And then on the 5th of January 2022, a red and black one. Now, this one surprised me when that was listed because I didn't think that people would want a red CGT. I guess it is a rare color. I guess it's something that isn't as common as, the silver and the black. How many red ones do you see? I still wouldn't put my 1.9 million in a red one. Would you, Steve?
Yep, I would.
You would? Really? Yep. Why? Tell me why.
Because I reckon it looks cool. I like it.
Do you?
Yeah. Yep.
Is that Guards red?
I can't remember. Yeah, Guards. I think it was Guards.
So that's a black, red with black interior, 05, and that was the record until a week ago. That was the record at 1.9 million US, 780 miles. You think you couldn't get one better than that, right? 780 miles. Well, almost straight after that sale, someone realized that they could get better, and on the 18th of January this year, they put a no reserve auction. This is actually a no reserve auction as well. They had the confidence, Steve, that they didn't. They weren't going to lose. The others weren't no reserve auctions. This is a no reserve auction. Silver Ascot Brown, beautiful, beautiful example. 2005, $2 million US it sold for. New record not just on Bring a Trailer, but a record for a Carrera GT. 250 miles. You think that person is going to drive that car?
No, which is a shame.
Which is a shame. Which is a shame.
It kind of vindicates, like, one of the few people I would sort of still watch on YouTube is TGE out of the UK. And that dude, like, I know his background sort of law and finance, or like
he's a
combination. And
lawyer banker, yeah.
Yeah. That guy knows how, like, he knows how to pick it, doesn't he? He obviously, like, isn't just enthusiastic about cars, but he quite clearly studies like the form and the values and all that kind of stuff, because he like most recently tends to seem to kind of pick cars that really do, like, he gets in just before they kind of spike, and then all of a sudden, he's making money. I
like TGE. I like Tom. I don't know whether he listens to the podcast, probably not, but I like him, and I know people who do know him.
Right.
And I think you're right. When he bought the 912, I think I put a message on the post, or I sent a message to him, and I think he told me how much he paid for it. I'm pretty sure he told me how much he paid for it. And he said, because this is when I was desperately wanting one straight away. And then he said to me, don't wait. Just don't wait. Just do it.
Yep.
And, the fact that how quickly he bought that car, and how quickly Ajmal bought his, and Ajmal, a flat cab driver, also said that his one has gone up by 30%. I think he told someone the other day in a comment.
You listening? Like, you're in the same sphere and bucket as TGE, mate.
Wow. But TGE, when he bought that Carrera GT, I think he paid under. I think there was something like it was 750,000 euro or something like that. I think he mentioned something about the price was good, and he bought it at the bottom. People like that, and you're right. And then the Targa, the 911 Targa he bought, and then the turbos and the Turbo S's that he buys. He buys those because in the UK, and I make that joke, when you're walking around Mayfair in London, an affluent area in London, you always see Turbo S's, and the fact is, those cars are almost like the free cars, aren't they? They are the free cars that you buy, a 992 Turbo S, and you can sell it 6 months later and get your money back.
Or
so
make a bit of money, yeah. And
or
you
make
can
a
tell
bit of
that
money.
He's smart enough. Like, I know he's now properly in the kind of car game, overall. And it might be easier when clearly he's got the disposable income to kind of go and, buy something very quickly and all that sort of stuff, and maybe seemingly overpay at the time. But then, with the benefit of hindsight, like a couple of months later, he's kind of nailed it from a money point of view. But yeah, he just seems he does seem pretty savvy in terms of his ability to kind of pick and spot sort of things.
And he's got the passion. He comes across as someone that does have the passion for Porsche. And sure, I think he buys some because he knows he's going to make a little bit of a quick buck. Like when he rebought the 911 Carrera T, Steve, he had one, then he sold, then he rebought one. I think he knew he was going to get that car, put it on YouTube and sell it again and make some money. That's okay. But the other cars...
he bought it off a mate, right? He bought it off a friend, so he knew the condition of the car. And I guess guessing that he didn't pay sort of full retail kind of price for that. Like if his mate was sort of trading it in or whatever, then it's easy to kind of snaffle that one up, sort of thing. But he's smart.
I struggle to watch all those other UK guys like Shimmy and Seen Through Glass and Supercars of London and all those people, and I really struggle to watch them. Sometimes I watch Shimmy just if it's a car that I'm interested in, I just want to see it, but I really do struggle. I just find it a little bit too, I don't know, fabricated. I don't know if that's the right word, but fabricated. Hey, Steve, speaking of rarity, speaking of something that if you bought something, and we spoke about this before we started recording.
We did.
We did, and if I was buying a... what is it called? The 911 GT3 70 years Porsche Australia edition. And I didn't realize, and the 911 GT3 70 years Porsche Australia edition is a 911 GT3. It's a touring. It was brought out by Porsche Australia exclusively with, Porsche Germany as a nod to the first car that was shipped in Australia in 1951, which was a 356 Cabriolet that arrived in Melbourne that was in fish silver grey. And that colour will be exclusively offered as the only colour for the 70 years Porsche Australia edition. I think in a previous episode I said, are they going to offer that colour in general? I don't know if I could find anything saying they wouldn't offer that car.
While you're talking.
Yeah, could they offer that colour as in the PTS range? So, everyone thinking, okay, that's a great car. People overseas, people that we chat with. I know Stephen in Sydney, he had someone that bought one. His friend bought one just recently. I saw one, someone else sent me one from Porsche Willoughby that's just been picked up.
Probably the same guy.
If you go, and I don't know
Stephen
what this
from Owners Chats, who seems to kind of know every man and his dog, he posted some pictures of that 70th anniversary thing, and it does kind of look pretty cool. But
I think the fish silver, Steve, looks good in on the road. Stephen had a picture of it on the road. I think his friend drove past and he took a picture. Looks great, right? Very happy.
You can't get it on paint to sample.
You can't?
No, it's not on the official paint to sample list.
Okay, so it's not a paint to sample colour, so you can't get it. So you'd have to request it. They probably deny you. The problem is you buy a special edition. How special is it? What are you getting for your money? Look, it's a GT3 Touring. We know the GT3 Touring is sought after, Steve. But in Holland, there is on Elferspot. If people go to Elferspot, you'll see it. It's a limited edition Carrera 4S in fish silver. Fish silver being the same colour as the Porsche Australia edition. And this one's celebrating renowned Ben Pon imports in Holland. It's a limited edition Carrera 4S fish silver celebrating their
70th anniversary of Pon Porsche import.
Oh, 70th anniversary as well. Okay. Okay, yes, you're right. In honor of the 70th anniversary of Pon Porsche import, the importer has built a special edition of the 911 in collaboration with Porsche Exclusive, pretty much the same spill as Porsche Australia. The 911 Carrera 4S Ben Pon Jr. is limited to 20 cars. 20. How many was the Australian one limited to?
25.
70. Oh, 25. Okay, so this one's 20 cars. This one's even rarer. But it is a 4S. The car is painted in the color fish silver. But that the very first 356 at Pon imported in 1949. So that fish silver 356 was obviously one of the few colors that Porsche made when they made that car.
Yeah.
What I think bothers me the most is that you kind of know that Porsche is not just going to make a car just for Australia, really. You know what I mean? They're sort of going to use the parts elsewhere, aren't they? They're going to sort of like...
A couple of million of us in the arse end of the world all of a sudden trying to make us feel special on them.
Yeah. And they say the color is very similar to the original color. You know what I mean? It's not it's obviously not going to be exactly the same. It's an interpretation of the color. What I think bothers me the most, Stephen, is, I've never been a fan of it. I actually think the sills look better on this one. I think the door sills look better than the Australian edition. But what I have a real problem with is the seats are exactly the same. It's the same leather inside.
It's the same blue leather and
it's exactly the same.
Inserts.
Exactly the same.
It's pretty dodge. Well, and that's not to kind of undermine, Stephen's mate, they have got like a rare and special kind of car and everything, but
it's not a touring. It's not a touring.
It's not a touring, but you would feel a little bit irked that all of a sudden they've kind of released sort of Oh, whilst we kind of were painting and trimming, these special 25 kind of tourings for Australia, we just busted out another 20 for the Netherlands kind of thing.
I'm gonna keep doing searches and see if other ones come up. I bet you there'll be a UK edition one as well. There'll be some UK special edition, yeah, for sure. Yeah. But like Steve said, we're not degrading the GT370 years, because it is a touring, it is a special car. But it's a little bit annoying that Porsche has like carried over things, and you kind of know due to production costs they probably would do that, Steve. The fact that you can't order the fish silver, I think, is a good thing. Then on PTS, if you can't do it on paint to sample, at least they've stopped that side of it. Hey, speaking of paint, because I know you like paint, I know you like correcting paint. You've got the eye for it now. Why did the Macan detail take you? Why did the Macan detail take you very little time to complete? Were you not taking as much care?
I don't know about very little. Yes, pretty much. That actually, you're joking.
It's not the GT3. Don't give a F. It's not the GT3.
So I just finished. When was that? Last week. Last week I started and I finished doing the paint corrections, ceramic coating on the Mrs. Macan. It was quicker because I wasn't learning. I had a faster, bigger machine. I borrowed my uncle's 6 Rupers, which takes a 6-inch pad as opposed to mine, which was a 3-inch pad.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I did care less because I know the car's going to get trashed. No offense to my wife. So like it's that combination. And the biggest thing was when I did my car, it was like off the road for it would have been maybe 2 months almost. I literally didn't drive it out on the street. I just kind of did panel by panel. This is the car that my wife uses all the time. She ferries our kids around, or I ferry our kids around, all that sort of stuff. So it couldn't feasibly be off the road for more than a couple of days here and there. So like I did the first step, it was off the road for 2 days. Then I put a temporary coat of wax on it. We drove around on it for a bit. Then I kind of finished it. So it was just all of those factors.
Can you do that, Steve? Sorry. You can do that. You can put a temporary coat of wax and then come back to it and take the wax off.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it did. Because if I did it kind of go like beginning to end off the road completely and leave the car so it doesn't get sort of dirty and contaminated and stuff, I reckon it would still take me like, in total maybe 4 or 5 days.
Right.
That's with a little bit of, tiny bit of experience. Like obviously when you take it to a pro, this sort of occurred to me only recently. They got helpers, like often it's not just one person doing it. It's like two, maybe 3 guys working on your car, and that's how they manage to turn it around in a day or 2.
Yeah.
Because it's hard work too. I reckon it would take me 4 to 5 days, not being as fussy as I did with the GT3. But in this instance, I knew that I couldn't take it off the road for 4 to 5 days because it just wouldn't work for my wife and my kids. So I did the first step, and then I kind of coated it with wax so it could then be driven around in. But then I had to kind of decontaminate, wash it, and strip the wax off and all of that sort of stuff to kind of then go again.
Right. But the tools and your experience obviously helped. That was why it was easy the second time around.
A little bit. The bigger polishing machine definitely kind of helped, but then what worked against me is that I hadn't used it before, so I had to kind of relearn, that machine plus, which pads worked with it properly and all of that sort of stuff. So,
look, I think you've started a trend. I think people who listen to the podcast, people are doing it. People seem to be detailing and paint correcting, or you're inspiring people to go to other places and get it done professionally. There's quite a few people that listen to the podcast who have now done their paint correction or had someone else do it. So
I think I'm late to the party, to be honest. Like I know it's been going on for a very long time, and lots of people kind of do it. I just always sort of felt like it was a really expensive thing to do, to pay somebody to kind of do it. Like
I'm still doing I'm hesitant to dive in. I'm still doing that. I'm still in that frame of mind. You know how I go through that.
yeah, man. I was like that for like, a year. I'd sort of thought about it, and my uncle kind of, got the ball rolling and stuff like that. And I resisted for a very long time. And Look, what do I really think? Is it worth it? Yeah, like I think it's worth it. I do actually think that you would enjoy it and stuff like that, but I don't think it's as seamless as everybody makes it out to be, because I do think the biggest thing, I've said it before, is your mindset shifts. You've either spent 80 hours working on your own car, or you've spent, more than $2,000 paying somebody else to do it. And it makes you get more particular about your car, even if you sort of think that you were particular to begin with. And that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. And I think, doing it yourself, I have to say I've been looking at and I've been toying with this in my head, and I haven't come to a conclusion about removing the window tint from my car. And I've said it to you, I think. I'm still thinking about doing it. And the reasoning behind it is I'm still thinking of doing it. I think it's a bit cloudy, the back one. It's not terrible, but I think it's a little bit. It's just in my head now, so I notice it. Yep. And I thought about removing it. And I thought if I remove it, then I can live with it for a month. If I don't like it, then I'll just take it and get them to put the ceramic tint on it, right? Yep. Maybe not as dark. Not a big deal. But if I get them to take it off and then I don't see it without, so whatever. But then I started watching things on YouTube, Steve. Very scary. Very, very scary. And I don't know if I should send you this one. And it looks reasonably easy to get off. People use either, heat guns or hair dryers or steam, right? The steam ones are interesting because it's interesting when you see people doing their own car. And there was a couple of people there that covered the doors and covered the back seats and whatever. There's this one dude on YouTube, honestly. People take his car, there. One was a GT3, I think it was. He doesn't put anything down. Someone said in the comments, you're just dumping your gear on the seat. You're not putting anything on the seat. Then he does the back window and he just starts spraying it and steaming it, and the water's going everywhere and it's like going all over the inside of the car. And I'm thinking, is this how people treat your car when you take it to these places? You really have to be careful what you do.
Possibly.
I know, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But
so what's the...
Long story short... What
is the preferred way of removing, steam or heat gun?
I think I'd use heat gun because I don't like all the water. But they say steam is easier. But I think
heat gun's more focused.
Yeah, I think heat gun. Someone else said in another thread on Renlist that if you just get the soapy water solution and you spray it on the glass and leave it on the glass, and I think this is the thing where people stick newspaper on the glass.
Does it?
Apparently, if you spray the soapy water, they say it just comes off. I don't know how that would work.
How does that work? How does that penetrate the adhesive underneath the
I don't know. But basically, if you see, and there's some really bad ones on YouTube, but if you see them with the heat gun, you'll get a little bit of glue where you start it. But in general, the glue comes off with the film. I watched other people do it who didn't heat it up. They kind of heated a bit and they pulled it off and just left all the glue. And then they show you how it takes them hours to take the glue off.
Yeah.
But obviously, like you said to me, the rear window is the problematic one because you've got the demister and the heater. Yeah. So you want to be careful there. But, I've been searching.
From the stuff that you've watched, has anyone had mishaps with doing that, like with messing their rear demisters?
No, it seems to be okay. I mean, if you heat it up enough and if you, steam it enough, I think it's okay. Tasha's dad's got a steamer and he said I could use his steamer, but I don't know if I want to use the steam. It gets very wet. I think I'd rather have the heat.
I've got a heat gun too if you want it.
Do you? Yeah, I think I'd rather use the heat. I haven't decided whether to do it or not. My wife's saying not to do it. I'm not sure what to do at the moment. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting thing. I've just been looking at and researching it. But just, when you get your car detailed or you get the tint put on your car, you really do need to trust who you're taking it to because this guy was just like nothing covering anything. It was terrible. Yeah. Hey, I just wanted to ask you one question about the Macan because I remember ages ago you said that you thought, not to mention you're detailing a Macan which is bigger and it's taller, so it's obviously harder to get around the body, right? Especially when you're doing the roof and stuff, right? And you've got to mask off the sunroof as well because you've got the sky roof, whatever you call it, panoramic roof. Panoramic roof.
I hate that roof.
So what I was going to say to you is the paint quality of the Macan. You said before you thought it wasn't as good as the 997.
Definitely
ages ago. So now you've been paint correcting it. Were there any issues that you were a bit like, oh, I got to be careful there? Did you see any really major flaws in the paint?
Yeah, there's heaps of flaws on it. I don't know how it got let out of the factory. I can sort of pick. I'd need somebody like Pierre or whatever at Atlas to kind of explain what it is. But it sort of is. There's like little bits on the bonnet and the front wings where it's like there was a little bubble in the paint surface or there was a bit of dust and it's been picked out or popped. And you can sort of tell like it's, it's nowhere near as good as the paintwork on the GT3 or like my previous cars, my 993 and my 964.
Right. That's not good. And it's a turbo
in terms
too.
of, well, that wouldn't make any difference. It wouldn't make any difference whether it's a turbo or a diesel.
Goes through the same
it's still
paint.
painted on the same line. Yeah. But yeah, I couldn't. I'm not experienced enough to kind of say whether or not it was easier or harder to kind of correct it and all of that sort of stuff, because I'm only really done 2 cars. But just visually looking at how many flaws and stuff like that are in it, the Macan is nowhere to the level of the GT3 or my previous 911s.
That's no good. I found 2 really good Macans for sale. Not that I'm looking at Macans, everyone listening, but I found 2 really nice ones,
Well,
Steve.
you kind of are if you found 2.
One, and they're both the new version. They're both with a lightsaber bar across the back.
Yep.
One is in crayon in Queensland. I think it's 50,000 kilometres. One is in crayon. And the other one is in both Macan S, and the other one is in Miami blue. The Miami blue is very cool.
I wouldn't do it.
The Miami blue is very cool in that Macan.
I've seen them in Miami in Viper Green, like in the showrooms and stuff, and it's like I just couldn't do it. I like this.
Fun color.
Obviously very subjective. Yeah, but I just kind of go. I kind of hate how personally how Porsche's sort of taken those colors were infamous for RSs, and like Miami was close to Riviera, which was classic 993 kind of color and stuff like that. And I think, Jerry Seinfeld almost kind of claims he started the trend for reviving those sort of bright colors off those old period kind of cars. I really dislike how Porsche has sort of, I know it's their heritage to rip off, but, like they were kind of classic 911 colors, and now they kind of stick them on Cayennes, like orange Cayennes and Miami blue Macans and stuff like that, plus sort of taking the Pepita and sticking that in the inserts.
Yeah, I know. The Carrera, I didn't realize sorry, Steve. I didn't realize the Cayenne had that Pepita insert that TGE's brother bought. I saw it on the video. It's like, it looks cool, but it's like, that's a bit annoying as well at the same time.
It just sort of makes it less special. It's like the fish silver thing that you just sort of pointed out from, Netherlands to Australia. It's kind of like, it sort of made it a little bit more, it's making it a little bit less special. And then, I don't know, the more that you see it, the more you kind of get put off by it, because it's like everybody's sporting Pepita, or everybody's got, like a Larry blue or kind of green or whatever, or even crayon. Like I feel crayon sort of, to me, has sort of been slightly overdone now, which is a shame again. Like
I really like crayon.
It was a bit more special.
But you're right. I do actually see a lot of Macans in Sydney. I've seen a lot in crayon. I've seen one Miami blue. I saw a lava orange Cayenne, I think, the other day.
Yep.
I know I saw that in Bahrain, I think. Maybe not in Sydney. Lava orange, which kind of looked fun. It's kind of nice instead of having the grey or the black. But you're right. It kind of dilutes it, doesn't it? It doesn't make it as special.
Well, I know it's easy for me to say, but like, wouldn't it be better if they somehow kind of conjured, like a sort of color that was special to a Cayenne or a Macan?
Formulated
that was,
new color.
Special to that kind of model sort of thing. I know, like they released them in hero colors and stuff like that, but they are kind of pillaging from their own sort of heritage, which to me waters it down a bit.
Good point. Speaking of, it's not watering down. Let's talk about we'll talk about this very quickly because we don't have a lot. Let's just talk about the turbo, like what we talked about before we started recording, Steve.
Yeah.
And this is just me thinking of things, when I'm lying down and late at night and I think of things, and this is sort of came into my mind before last week's episode, is that the turbo, and I gave you those points that I got off. I can't remember what site they were from. It was Classic and Sports Car, and it was the stats from the Porsche release for the original. Well, it wasn't really stats because it talked about the original 911 turbo, and we know Marco has a 996 turbo, and the turbo is like the 996 and 997. They've really come of age. People are really loving them. The prices, the demand. They're very, very popular. Especially the 0.1 997 turbo, Steve, and Marco's turbo because of the Metzger. Yep. But what I was thinking of, and how I'll get to the point eventually, like I always do, is that the turbo was so special. It was so iconic. It was the pinnacle of the Porsche range. There was really nothing, apart from, the limited run RSs or whatever they were at the time. The turbo was the aspirational car. That was the car you that you wanted. That's why so many people talk about the turbo and the whale tail and the poster on the wall, because it was the turbo. And then Porsche brings out their 911 and everything is a turbo. And then people are against it. Am I missing the point here? But, like, the change,
sort of thing.
the change of feeling for the turbo. And then, turbos at one point there, when they were 996 turbos, there were a lot of Tiptronic 996 turbos, right? A lot of people bought tips, and a lot of people that had them were the wealthy, Eastern Suburbs people here, and a lot of them were in tips. That perception has changed. But what is it about the turbo? I mean, the turbo was very special, wasn't it? Based on all these information, I didn't know half this stuff. It was very, very special.
So back in the day, like originally, turbos were used in motorsport, but they weren't common in sort of everyday cars. I don't think Porsche was the first though. Like, did the 2002 Ti come out before Porsche Turbo? I think there were some other notable kind of cars before, like the original sort of 911 Turbo in 1975. But back then, like when they released it, it's like, newfangled kind of technology, kind of cutting edge sort of stuff, blah, 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 and like super fast, lots of power. So it became like a sort of hero car.
Yeah.
That everybody kind of hankered for, which is cool. Like, and then iconic sort of features like the whale tail and even that turbo script, like for the badge and everything. You sort of equate all these sorts of things. So I don't know, even like as a kid, even as a kid, like I would have been 75, I was 1 year old. But, like just the word turbo kind of means something. Like, turbocharged, if you had a turbocharged ice cream, it meant that
it was better.
Super duper kind of thing. Like it had special powers.
Yeah, it was the best.
But I guess all of a sudden that kind of gets diluted, because by the time you hit like a Golf GTI or an Audi A4 that came with a low pressure turbo, all of a sudden everything's kind of got turbos because it's more efficient. Like it's a more efficient way of producing power, and it's more economical and stuff like that than shoving a great big engine in something. I suppose that kind of dilutes, again, like going back to that train of thought, like because it becomes more common, it dilutes the specialness of that.
Dilutes the specialness.
Turbo moniker. Yeah.
It's like the fish silver thing again. It's like, the more of them. But, look at the original. Let me just read out a couple of these things, because they're quite interesting, some of these. And like you said, you already touched on this, some of the stats from this Porsche release, or details of the original Porsche Turbo. The original Turbo, like you said, features a whale tail, developed from the 3.0 RS, right? So that's an iconic feature that came out. The price of the Turbo in 1975 was almost £15,000 in the UK, which is a lot of money at the time. Hell of a lot of money.
So you can buy a house for that sort of money?
I'd say so, yeah. When motor achieved 160.1 miles per hour during its road test of the 3.3 turbo in 1979, the car became the fastest production car the magazine had ever tested to date. At 12.3 seconds to 100 miles an hour from rest, it was also the most accelerative.
Yep.
What else? 930 sales in America. 930 sales in America were halted at the end of 79 due to emissions. That's not that important. The 997 Turbo was the first petrol-powered production car to feature variable geometry turbochargers, Heathrow only available on diesel cars. I didn't know that. Did you know that?
Yeah. So that was sort of like, again, I think that's a bit of a marker for Porsche turbos, like 911 turbos, a bit like sort of, how they talk about Mercedes S-classes. Anytime there was a new Merc S-class, that was supposed to be the forefront of technology. So like any kind of new innovation in cars would come out in a Merc S-class, and you sort of feel the same way with 911 turbos. So like variable vane technology in 997 was the first time it kind of came out in a petrol kind of turbo. And then I'm guessing that probably every turbo now, like in a normal car, probably has that sort of tech. So like all of this sort of stuff that kind of comes out, used to kind of come out with a 911 turbo, and you used to kind of ooh and ah and sort of read all of this amazing innovation. And, it was always kind of cutting edge. Always cutting edge,
yeah. So, and then they say the original 1973 911 Turbo concept car displayed at the Frankfurt Motor Show survives to this very day. Its 3.0 RS body now closes a 3.0 RS engine, so it's been changed. It's not original. What else? The
all that stuff in a 959. Like 959's sort of
Yes.
was a turbo engine in it. Like I had all that sort of technology. I can't quote it properly, but the mixture of, was it water cooled heads but air cooled other bits, and like all the four-wheel drive. I guess turbos are sort of traditionally sort of known for the combination with sort of four-wheel drive transmissions, like out of the 959.
That's a good point. So the 993, where was it? The first 911 turbo to feature four-wheel drive was a 993 base model, introduced in 1995.
Mm-hmm.
The first 911 turbo to be available with an optional automatic gearbox was the 996 base model, introduced in 2000. PDK arrived in 2010.
Yep.
20,000 odd 930, 911 turbos were built. Not very many. Split between 3,200 examples of the 3-litre model and 17,000 odd of the 3.3-litre model.
Yep.
Then later derivatives, including the Targa Cabriolet slant nose.
Yep.
What else? Anything else? The latest, and then we go on to the latest ones. This is what I mean. This is not really the stats of the original turbo. It's just stats about turbo. Continuing with the tradition of the 911 turbo as a technology pioneer, the latest 991, well, it's not the latest anymore, features the world's first variable front spoiler, powered by pneumatic actuators depending on vehicle speed. So that was a first. So they're still doing firsts on the 9. I don't know what the 992 has as a first, but I'm sure it has something, right? The 992. It's a bit like the S-Class and the Mercedes, isn't it? It kind of like... It kind of like sets the scene for other parts that are going to go into other Mercs or other Porsches, I guess, eventually.
Yeah. But I suppose the point, like, it's interesting if you kind of track, like, maybe the perception, which was the first point that you were kind of making. Like, it was always the hero car, like, way back in the day. And I can still, when I had my 964 and my 993, like, everybody was raving about the bad boys kind of what was 965 turbo, and then the 993 turbo has always sort of been like a super iconic kind of car. Then like Marco's car, the 996 turbo, you'd always kind of turn your head if you kind of saw one on the road, but they started to become a lot more popular and less rare at that point. I don't know where the sheen as such sort of seemed to kind of wear off a little bit, but it did feel like, maybe after that, they weren't as kind of, I don't know, heroic. I don't know what the word is.
Yeah, I guess the GT cars have kind of taken over that, right? GT3, GT2s have kind of taken that sort of thing away from the turbo. But then the turbo, you can't say it's not it's a very popular model. And I go back to the UK, right? A very popular model. The 911 Turbo S, look at 991, look at 992, look at the values of the 991 still. People, that's still a great car. I have no problem with that 911 Turbo S. If it had paddle shifters, I think it's a very cool car. I mean, I think there's one on sale at car sales at the moment for $299 with 50,000 kilometers, white with red. And I've seen them in Bahrain. They're very popular in Bahrain. And you see them on the road all the time. And it's a nice, it still has a presence. It really does have a presence. It's still special. But maybe it's more special under the radar now because everyone's buying GT3s and GT2s, that maybe the turbo is, more under the radar in a way.
Well, big sort of generalization and just talking perceptions kind of thing. Like, you're right. All of a sudden the GT3 kind of came out and that became the kind of hero car, like the poster car for Porsches in general. And I guess because you kind of go, oh, Porsche is a performance brand or a motorsport brand.
Yes.
Turbos aren't sort of thought about as necessarily motorsport kind of cars. GT3s sort of are, and you sort of think of Porsche as a motorsport brand. So then you kind of go, oh, well, the turbos are super high performance, but they're kind of put slightly in the more grand touring kind of category, more everyday kind of category, more continent kind of cruiser, continent killer kind of thing, which isn't as sort of shiny glossy as kind of going, hey, we won Le Mans or we, did this and that. But it's interesting, like maybe that's kind of where the split was, because when the GT3 was there. But just like from my perception, like, when you kind of come now full circle to the 992, it's interesting, like Harry Metcalf and somebody else. Who was it? I think some of the Evo the guys that write for Evo, have almost sort of said, GT3 is an amazing car. Like, we're not kind of shitting on it, but like in terms of as an everyday sort of street car,
Turbo S.
we'd almost take TGE. It was TGE.
Yeah.
We'd almost sort of take like a 992 Turbo S instead of a GT3 because like it's so capable and it's so good.
Comfortable, crazy performance. Yeah.
Yeah. And they kind of acknowledged it too, didn't they? Like when they launched that car, Frank Wallace sort of said that they tried to bring some of the kind of dynamic edge back to it. They almost sort of like conceded that that they wanted to bring some of the fun back into the kind of turbos. So the 992 Turbo S really is like kind of a little bit back to that type of thing.
It looks pretty cool. I mean, I like how it looks. The 992 looks very, very, very tough, very menacing, I think.
Yeah, better than the 991. Like, again, I wouldn't be complaining about a 991 or a 997 turbo. Even if you have this conversation with Mark, I remember him sort of saying to me that he, for whatever reason, prefers the idea of a 996 turbo, which he's got,
yes, versus
a 997 turbo. And I kind of got where he was coming from when he sort of said it. Like, not shitting on a 997 turbo, but there's just that funny kind of perceptual thing about it.
Yeah, true. And the last point on that, that article, the 911 turbo had a very special fan very early on. Ferry Porsche drove his 911 turbo with chassis number blah, blah, blah until the 16th of June 1980 for a total of 8,000 kilometers, Steve, equipped with a steel sliding sunroof. That distressed me how Ferry Porsche had a sunroof in his 911. Air conditioning, brown leather. I think a lot of the Porsche family, I saw another car from someone in the Porsche family and it also was like brown with brown leather. I forget, I think it was one of the sisters or the daughters or something had a car, long-standing car. There was some article about it. They really liked the brown. The Porsche family really liked the brown. Brown leather upholstery, many other extras. This car has since been a part of the Porsche Museum collection. You would have seen it in Germany when you were there in Stuttgart. You remember it?
Can't remember it.
911 Turbo? Very Porsche's car.
Color is it, I wonder?
Well, it's got brown leather, so I'm guessing it's brown.
No, the exterior?
I don't know. It doesn't say. It doesn't say.
I remember there was a turbo there. I think it had like tartan decals. Was that a turbo? I can't remember. There's some pretty cool cars there.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird that people. I'd still find it weird that people are such downers on sunroofs. It's like, like I know, like you don't necessarily sort of spec it, but it doesn't make it a bad car to have a sunroof.
I know. I opened it the other day. I actually opened it because I wanted to see if it was working. We were going over to Natasha's parents on the north side, and it was a hot day, and I opened it, and Tash said, "Close it."
Too hot, right?
Yeah, too hot.
Way too hot.
Too hot, too open, too exposed.
Just on some heritage-y type stuff. What did you think of the Porsche design 50th anniversary sort of thing? Did you see they released
the
commemorative Targa, but then they brought the watch up? I reckon the watch is better than the car.
You know what? I haven't. Yeah. I know you put that link. I haven't looked at it that much.
There's not that much to it.
So the watch is good?
The watch is sort of like a throwback to the original kind of one that we've talked about previously, which I've always really liked. And I should have bought one when it was like, $1,200.
Oh, really?
Aussie.
Have they brought that out? I was looking at them the other day for sale. I can't find the link. I can't click on the link for some reason.
That's okay. Like, I think last time we talked about the watch, I think you sort of said they now retail for about 10 for the original Orfina.
I saw one for 12 the other day. Oh, they brought that watch out, have they?
You have to buy the car. It's only available.
What?
Yeah. But at least to me, it's not as dodgy as the GT3, watch that they've kind of brought out that you can kind of, customize to match your kind of car. So they brought out a commemorative black Targa that's got a few sort of Porsche design sort of details on it. Again, like it's another one of those special editions in black. But I didn't realize. I thought maybe you might be able to go and buy the watch, but you can't. You actually have to buy the car to get the watch.
That's annoying. If anyone who's listening, just go to Houdinki on Instagram. They've got a picture of the two Targas, and then they've got a little spiel about the watch, and they've got a picture of the watch. Actually, the first image is the watch, but it just says the first watch is a direct homage to the original Porsche design chronograph launched in 1972, featuring an updated movement and a titanium construction. So the original one was steel, right? It wasn't titanium, or it's coated.
PVD coder or
Yeah,
something.
PVD coat, PVD of the time, yeah. The second known of the chronograph 1 is nearly identical, but will be available exclusively to buyers of the 2022 Porsche designed 50th anniversary. Good reason to buy one, though, if you get the watch. Oh, you don't get it for free, though. You just got to pay for it, right? Or you get it for free.
No, you have to pay for it.
So you have to pay for it as well? What? You're buying the car. What do you think of that? I don't mind the look of that Targa. Like, I don't mind it. Like, I think the seats are quite nice, the seat inserts. I really don't
I
like
the inserts, yeah. Yep.
I don't like how it says Porsche design on the script on the side doors. But I like I think you'd peel that off or just option it off. But I like the black and the silver. I mean, I'm a bit of a fan of the Targa when I've seen a couple in London in all black with the black crossover with the black. Yep. And they do look very menacing. I'll use that word. They look very menacing in all black, Steve. I think they look pretty cool. But that watch is the watch. And like cool, I said, that's the Porsche.
But if you have to choose
watch
between that watch and an original one, I think I'd prefer the original one.
Yeah, but I was looking at originals. Sorry, Steve. I was looking at originals the other day. Have you seen the condition of them? They are people who bought those are beaten up they're so beaten up. It's terrible.
Because they're tool watches. They were, military watch and all that sort of stuff. But like I was going to say, I'm pretty sure back when you could travel, I'm pretty sure like on a trip to Hong Kong, I'm pretty sure they did a 40th anniversary watch, which was like the same watch, like with special kind of 40th anniversary kind of edition, and it looked the same and all that sort of stuff.
So that would have been 2012 then, because it came out in 72.
Maybe 2012, yeah. So like in wandering around, like, the shops as you do in Hong Kong, I'm pretty sure I kind of came across, like the special box with the kind of watch, and it came with the bracelet plus like, leather or rubber bands and all that
Let's
sort of
search that out. Let's search that out and see, because I've got a watch in my mind at the moment which I'm tempted to buy, and I know it's not something I would usually buy, but I'm tempted to buy it.
Yep.
Which I'm not going to let on, but it's classic.
Maybe that 40th anniversary, I'm guessing the movement and everything inside of that thing wouldn't have been that particularly kind of special.
For some reason, I probably think I would probably prefer to buy that one. I had a look. I was only looking a couple of days ago, and all of them, because of that surface, that black finish is not.
The coating comes off.
Let's be honest. In 2000,
PVD.
In 2000, 2004, all the watches that have done black, IWC, Panerai, whatever they are, it always comes off that finish. Yeah. There's a Panerai which is like really bad, where it's just come off really badly, and it's cheap to buy now if you want to pick it up on the second-hand market.
I'm assuming you can have it refinished, but then you're losing all the kind of provenance of the watch if you do it.
Yeah, true. But if you find a really nice new in-box one, that would be cool.
I noticed like, when Frank Walliser and Andreas Proninger did the PR rounds recently, must have been GT3, I suppose. And you saw them on video. They were both wearing the original watch as well.
Yeah, I know. I don't understand what's wrong with us. We should have bought one years ago. They were so unloved. They became
what's wrong with me? I don't have the money.
They become so unloved. But a few years ago you did.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. But.
Hey, let's finish. Do you have a recommendation? Because we're gonna finish it, and we're gonna use those two other topics we're gonna chat about next week. Because you have to go to Order House, and I've got to do a bit of work.
Yeah, no worries.
Recommendation? Do you have one? Do you want to start first?
Yes, I do. Tire coating. On my recent detailing binge, I tried Optimum tire coating. So, like, I'm sure anybody that kind of cares about their car is used to tire dressing. There's like myriads of different ones, and they're water-based or solvent-based. So, you get your little brush or your foam applicator on every time you wash your car, and you clean your tire and you wipe it on. But then the problem with it is that it never lasts and it slings. Like, it leaves those little black kind of dots all over the side of your car as soon as you drive it.
Yes.
I'm late to the party again, but this newfangled tire coating thing, Optimum tire coating, if you apply it to your tires, it looks pretty much like a fresh dressing every single time, but it doesn't wear off. It doesn't wash off in the rain. It doesn't sling. I was a little bit cynical. Like, I actually did it to my car as in the GT3, when I did the detail on it, whenever that was, like 6 months ago. And I remember saying to you, I wasn't sure because it was a real pain in the ass to apply it. And I'd watched like millions of videos and read so many things. The trick to it is that you've got to prep your tire really, really well. You've got to really thoroughly clean it. Otherwise, it won't bond to the surface of the rubber, and then it comes out patchy and it peels and all that kind of stuff. So you've got to get that right. But I did it to the GT3. I was a little bit unsure, and then I realized afterwards, after kind of driving and then just washing the car and everything, it's like every time I wash the car, it looks like perfect. It looks like a freshly dressed tire.
So it's Optimum tire coating. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, there's different brands. Like you can get Guion and all that sort of stuff now as well. But
so they last 6 to 12 months. It says on something I just found. Then 6 to 12 months. Is that true?
Yeah. My tip.
How do you clean the tire so well, though? Tell me how you get the tire.
You've got to get one of those big kind of brushes, like a proper big brush. You've got to use all-purpose cleaner and scrub until like the brown kind of foams up.
Right.
And then you got to do it again, and then you got to do it again. You really got to scrub your tire hard.
Okay.
Until the point when, like, if you kind of get like a microfiber and you wipe the microfiber across your tire, like your freshly cleaned tire, if you still get black coming off it, then you haven't cleaned it enough.
Okay.
So you got to keep going until like you literally can kind of wipe it and nothing comes off. So that's how you've got to prep it. And then the other little trick with this stuff is I watched enough videos and stuff to realize that you've got to use as little of it as possible, like be as sparing as possible.
Oh, right.
I did it again on the McCann and it turned out really well. So
it's not something that goes crispy over time, right? It's not going to get like a hard coating. And then what if you have to recoat it then? Do you have to do the same process and take the old coating off?
I read bits where... see, like the thing is that if you were to scratch it off, like, pretend you rub up against a curb and you kind of chip the coating off it. I don't know what you literally kind of do there. But once you put it on, it's very hard to get it off as well. Like if you just take to it with a chemical and stuff like that, you won't get it off, which is like one of the plus sides to it.
And cost is okay?
So cheap. It was like $40 for a bottle, like a bottle this size.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember. It's like 200 mils, and I've used about like this much. I reckon I've used about 5 or 10 mils on 2 cars.
So it seems like all this detailing stuff, it's always the prep. You got to get the prep right. Once you do the prep, the other bit sort of all falls in place, but it's the prep that takes all the time, right?
Yeah. But like I was a bit skeptical. I didn't think I did the best job on my car, and I wasn't quite sure like that it was good. And now that I've lived with it for 6 months, it's like, it's so good.
Oh, that's good.
I've just done it to the McCann, and it's like, like it just means that you don't get all that sling, and you're not kind of constantly after every wash brushing that shit on your tires. Like it's like permanent now.
Yeah, I mean, I went on that drive. I went up to the coast on the weekend on Sunday.
Yep.
Only because I committed to it. I took Tasha up there with my family, as you know.
Yep.
And it was a pretty miserable day. And I know you and Marco didn't go on your drive because it was raining.
Yeah, we were going
when I looked out the window at 7, I left here at 7:30 in the morning, so I think it was 6 o'clock when I got up, or 6:30. It was wet, but it wasn't raining. And it was actually okay. It felt okay, but there's spray on the road. So my car now, I haven't washed it. I didn't get a chance to wash it yesterday because I got caught up.
Filthy, right?
But it's killing me in the back of my head thinking, I've got to wash it today. So I've got to go down there tonight and give it a wash, because it's just got all the black, in the inside of the wheel arch and on the back and everything. It doesn't look filthy, but it was just enough spray to make it look, too dirty for me. I know other people never wash their cars, but I can't be like that, Ajmal.
Pigpen.
That picture was terrible. That picture on Instagram.
Yeah, somebody sent a picture of that Snoopy Peanuts character, a Pigpen, in reference to Ajmal, which I thought was quite apt.
Recommendation before we go, because we've got to go. My recommendation, and look, this is nothing new, and I know a lot of people use this product. I'm a bit late to the party. I remember James at Auto Amateur did it ages ago on I think it was his 997. But I've watched videos on it. I was a little bit hesitant at first because I thought, do I really need it? And then I thought, is it going to damage my bonnet, the hood, the trunk lid, or whatever you call it?
Okay. Yep.
It's lid liner. That's my recommendation this week, lid liner. Some of you guys would have already purchased this. It's from lidliner.com. I bit the bullet, so to speak, last week. It's being shipped now from the US. I think it's actually already in the country. I think it's already arrived.
So I haven't got it yet.
I haven't got it yet, no. It's big though, and I think it's coming Australian post. God knows what condition it's going to be in. But it's just a lid liner that goes on for people who don't know. If there's a couple of people listening who don't know what it is, it just stores, protects the front lid, right? It protects the trunk lid.
The underside.
The underside, it goes on the underside. They give you like plastic kind of clips. It just fits into the gaps of the structure of your hood, underneath your hood, and you just push it in. And then it's supposed to protect you from the cargo jumping up and down. I always carry like 6 packs of water and stuff when I go to the shops, and I stick them in there, and I'm always worried I hit a bump, it's going to jump up and like smash my hood, Steve. I don't know if that's... I don't know if it'll make it... I don't know if this is going to change it or not. I don't know how much protection it gives, but I thought it was a good thing to buy. It's not super...
it's going to scratch the liner instead, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's not super cheap either. It wasn't super cheap. But anyway, that's what I bought. That's what I recommend. It's the missing part. Like I said, I haven't installed it yet, but I think it's a good one. I think it's kind of something that you kind of need to have. Steve didn't want to buy it. He thought it was too expensive.
I looked at it because I think it was on Suncoast years and years ago, and I did look at it, but then the shipping cost was kind of very, very expensive. It's like, I don't care enough about the underside of my front lid to spend that sort of money on it.
I think it's 200 something. I think it's 200 US. I don't have it in front of me. I think it's 200 US. And just so that overseas listeners realize what we have to go through here. I think I'm going to look at it actually because I've got it here open. I think my one was 229 US. Suncoast wanted to charge me $300 US shipping. That was the cheapest shipping. So then I bought it directly from Lidliner, and I think their shipping was 120 US. So it's about 360 US or something all up. So it adds quite a bit.
Like, even then for me, like unless I'm kind of, getting something like a exhaust part or whatever else, I kind of go 120 US, so like, close to $200 shipping, Aussie, sorry. It's like, I'm out. Like, I kind of just go, that's a lot of money, $200 just to kind of get something to the arse end of the world.
Yeah, I think the shipping was 114 US and it cost 229 US. So that's how much it adds on to it. But I think it's pretty good. I'm glad I got it. I probably wouldn't have bought it if I knew I had to pay the amount of money I have to pay to get my ignition switch fixed, but it's done now, so it's too late. So that's it. I will update once I put it in. That should be easy for me to fit. I should be able to fit that one. No, I haven't. People have been asking me, no, I haven't fitted the knob. I haven't tried to fit the knob. Steve's asked me as well. I haven't done it. I'm not going back to do that for a while. I'm just going to leave it for a second. Even though Marco...
Just get Autohouse to do it when you go and visit.
I don't know. Marco fitted his and it looks cool. So I feel like I need to do it, but I will go and do it. As Marco said, do it with fresh eyes. I will go and do it, but I don't know when. This week sometime. Steve, anything else?
Nope.
I think we're...
No, so I was going to say negative.
Negative. All right. I think that's it. Let's go. Thanks, mate.
Take it easy, mate. Have a good week.
You too. Good luck today. I hope it doesn't cost you too much.
Me too. But, it is what it is. So, I really want to get rid of that horrible little flashing airbag light.
That would drive me crazy. You're not getting anything else done while you're out there?
No. Hell no. I'm trying to be a good boy and not sort of trash money at the moment.
Spend the cash.
Yep.
That's exactly what I'm doing, mate. It's exactly what I'm doing. All right, everyone. Thanks, Steve. That's Steve coming in from Sydney, same as me. I'm in Sydney at the moment as well, but we're doing this by Zoom because it's just easier this time of the morning. It's quite early in the morning. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to the PorscheCooled Podcast. Bye for now.